given their entire lives to the sea, to the air, to the nets, and to the fishing. I can take you to the city where I live, where my home is. I can take you to an old lawyer's office. And at the end of his life, he is bent over his desk, surrounded by, shall we say, ancient law books. The air is filled with the brown golden hue of those leather bindings. The dust from the worn books is everywhere. And the man himself looks like a great animated roll of parchment. Why? Because he gave himself totally to this. He gave his life to it. You will become the thing to which you give yourself. The thing that you give yourself to is the thing that you will become in the end result. I can take you to the farmlands of Iowa where I grew up, and I can show you old men that at the end of their lives, they're extremely earthy. They smell like the earth. Their language is like it. They're simple people, lovely people, wonderful people. They possess something that basically city people do not possess. They possess a kinship with the earth itself. It is a friend to them. They've learned to make it produce. And they are very earthy at the end of their life. Why? Because they gave themselves to that. Anna Pavlova, the greatest ballerina who has ever lived, gave herself to dance exercises, to what they call bar work. From 8 to 12 hours per day, she practiced untiringly. She became the world's greatest dancer, as did Nijinsky, because they gave themselves unreservedly to these things. Do you know why great athletes become great athletes? Because they give themselves to athletics. The reason people become great musicians is because they give themselves to music. They give themselves totally over to it. I read the story of a young man who wanted to win the gold medal in the Olympic competitions. In his practice, in his unconditional surrender of self, in his dedication to practice, he actually would throw himself out of line in a bank, standing, waiting for the teller to cash a check or whatever. He would throw himself out of line and do as many push-ups as he could on the bank floor until he was exhausted and fell on the floor, caring not what others thought. He was possessed with a thought. He was possessed with a goal, and he gave himself unconditionally to it. He would jog in place, standing in line in a grocery store. Did he win a gold medal? Yes, he won the gold. He attained his goal because he gave himself to it. The thing we give ourselves to is the thing that we will become in the end result. It must have been something. It must have been something when Jesus walked in this world. It must have been something to have lain down on the ground at night when it came time for sleep, to perhaps have heard the crackle of a small campfire in the distance, to see the flickering light upon the bushes, on the tree trunks round about, and to have been able to have heard the breathing of the Master as you fell asleep. Perhaps to have heard a word of encouragement, a word of comfort, a word of love fall from his lips as he himself fell into sleep. It must have been something to have walked with him, to have talked with him, to have slept on the ground where he slept. But the startling thing was, and I'm sure the thing that caused consternation in the lives of the apostles more than once, was that in the morning when they awakened, though they had traveled the day before with him, though they had seen signs, wonders, and miracles, though they had gone to sleep with the contentment of his presence, with his words lingering in the air, with the sound of his breathing, when they awakened in the morning, many times they awakened to find the Master gone. And when they arose and got to their feet, the big question was, where is the Master? Where did he go? Has anyone seen this Jesus of Nazareth? Did he go toward Bethany? Did he go farther to Jericho? Was he headed toward Galilee? Did he go to the mountain today? Was he headed for the valley? And someone had always seen the Master. Someone had always seen him. And someone was always able to tell which direction he had gone. So the goal was to find the Master, to find him afresh and anew today. Some days the disciples had to climb the mountains because that's where he went. But other days they had to go to the valley because that's where he went. But the law of great truth here is this, that if you follow after him, you will find him. If you seek after him, you will find him. But you must find the road that he took. You must be able to ascertain each and every new day which direction the Master is walking in. It may take you to the valley today. To follow in his footsteps today may take you to the mountaintop. But the promise is that if you seek after him, if you follow after him, you will find him. And for those that followed after him, they became like him. They became like him. They took on his attributes. His virtues became theirs. So today, do you really want him? Are you willing to climb the mountains? Are you willing to go to the valleys today? You must be determined that you will find him anew and afresh each and every day that you live. You must seek him out. You can go to bed with a glorious blessing from a tremendous service or fellowship with the brethren. You may have seen signs and wonders and miracles, but when you awake in the morning, you may feel that he is not there as he was when you fell asleep. So the thing to do is to raise your hands, and to raise your voice, and to herald the great truth. This is the day that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And Jesus, I will find you. I will follow after you today. I will seek you. I will hear your voice. I will touch the hem of your garment again. I will feel the touch of your hand today. So much of this is in our hands. So much of this is in our power. How much of him do you want? How much do you want him? How much of yourself are you willing to give? A report came to me several years ago about a man who is well known in America, perhaps in your country also. His name was Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn is one of the greatest Hollywood actors of this particular hour or era. He was interviewed live on television. I did not see it, but the report from an interested person came to me because they know that I have a burden for prominent people. Anthony Quinn was interviewed. He was asked the question, why are you so successful? Why are you so successful as an actor? Anthony Quinn then began to give his life story. We might call it his life's testimony. He told how that when he was a child, he had an incurable disease and he was dying. But they had some neighbors that lived near to them, and these neighbors knew about his condition, and these neighbors were forever contacting Anthony's parents, inviting them to bring Anthony with them to what they called a revival service, a church revival. Anthony's parents would never concede to go, but these neighbors continued to ask. They continued to ask them to come. Finally, the neighbors said, well, if you won't go, can we take Anthony with us? And finally the parents said, yes, you can take him. He's dying anyway. You might as well take him. So Anthony went with these neighbors to a revival service. And when he arrived at this service, the preacher that was preaching is someone that is famous in at least America for her great revival efforts many years ago. Her name was Amy Semple McPherson. These neighbors brought Anthony Quinn as a child to this woman who believed in the power of prayer and the power of Jesus. She laid hands upon him and prayed for him for divine healing. And Anthony Quinn was divinely healed